Battle CD 16, Slowpoke Family Feud. Sharpedo, please don't thrash about. I have no idea why this is a 2-star difficulty. It's actually very, very easy. So we're facing a Slowpoke, a Slowbro, and a Slowking. All of them have Confusion, and we have a Dark type that's immune to Psychic. So really, there's no way we can lose. But there is one thing we can do to mitigate the very, 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 very small chance that could possibly cause us to lose. And I'll talk about that when we get into the battle, but it involves this Mischievous and clever use of its skill swap ability. Shark versus Hermit Crab Bear things. I really have no idea what the Slowpoke line is even supposed to be. Also, this guy's name looks like a really defective iPod product. So, here comes the Slow family, and we'll be standing against them with our Sharpedo and Mischievous. Now, they will always target Mischievous with Confusion, because the AI knows that it can't hurt the Sharpedo. That makes our job a little bit tricky. Sharpedo will go for Thrash. Remember that in dull battles, Thrash targets a random opponent, so we have no real control over who we're damaging. Since Sharpedo can't be hurt by the Slow family, though, we don't need to worry too much about it. The only threat is confusing ourselves with Thrash and hurting ourselves in Confusion, but there is a way we can eliminate that risk. We need to use Skill Swap on the Slowpoke. Not the Slowbro, the Slowpoke, and this is where things get really irritating. Because the Slow family can have two abilities, either Oblivious or Own Tempo, and you have no way of knowing which each one has without trial and error, and that really annoys me. So, with this, Mischievous should have Own Tempo, and that should mean there's no risk of the chance of confusion from these moves. So, now we use Skill Swap to put Own Tempo on Sharpedo. You can always target your own Pokemon with Skill Swap, remember. With Own Tempo, Sharpedo will not confuse itself with Thrash, so that means that the one method for Sharpedo to take damage is gone, and that means there's no way we can lose this fight. So, everything is pretty much in the bag now, but there are a few things Mischievous can still do to try and help. That is, if it doesn't get crit by either of these confusions and go down, because that can happen. I really hope that Slowpoke was actually the one that had Own Tempo. Okay, Mischievous no longer would have Own Tempo thanks to that skill swap, so I'm pretty sure that I did things right. So, now that Mischievous is on lower health, we could go for a Pain Split. Pain Split adds your and the target's HP and averages them. And in some ways, the safest option for a Pain Split is our own Sharpedo, because there's no risk of our own Sharpedo taking damage, so lowering our own Sharpedo's health won't really do much. So let's go for that. Meanwhile, Sharpedo keeps thrashing, and Slowbro is down. That should mean that Slowking comes in, but Slowking doesn't have as much defense as Slowbro does, so Thrash is hopefully going to be a bit better on it. Yeah, see, look at that healing we just got. And we come out with the exact same amount of HP. Like I said, it averages your HP between you and the target. And you can target an ally, though usually targeting an ally with Pain Split is not a good idea. But here it works because we don't need to worry about Sharpedo's health anyway. So, let's Pain Split one of them and go for some even more health, provided that Sharpedo doesn't end up thrashing it. Of course Sharpedo did! Yeah, there is a little bit of luck in this fight if you're aiming Pain Splits, because... Okay, that at least slightly damaged you. Because, yeah, you can't tell who Thrash is going to hit. But, really, whether or not Mischievous goes down doesn't matter, because Sharpedo is, at this point, invincible. Now that it has Own Tempo, it can't confuse itself with Thrash, and since it can't be hurt by Confusion anyway, Confusion the move, not Confusion the status, we have no risk of losing Sharpedo. Do have some risk of losing Mischievous here, but doesn't really matter so long as Sharpedo survives. Okay, Mischievous leaves to fight another day. Probably not for very long, though, because you're gonna get confusioned. It is interesting how the AI always targets Misdreavus with confusion, but that makes sense because they seem to be programmed to realize that it'll have no effect on Sharpedo. But now, now they don't have a choice. Also, Thrash at least makes this go faster because it skips the menuing portion, due to the fact that we're locked into it. And this battle is pretty much all but won now. I still don't like that jerk move of the fact that you actually have to skill swap the slow poke, not the slow bro. And that there's no way of knowing that without trial and error. So for winning that battle CD, we get a full heal. What we want to do is, we want to use Skill Swap to take the own tempo ability from one of these slow Pokemon. Guess I'll just call them the slow family. Okay, that one actually hit the slow bro, which has more defense. That's why I targeted that one with Skill Swap, by the way. There was slightly less chance of it going down in one hit than the Slowpoke. Actually, considerably less chance. So now, Misdreavus has the own tempo ability. Also, that Slowbro has Levitate, but that doesn't matter. Also, if you want to, you can Pain Split your own Sharpedo, but it's not really that necessary because... Wait, how did that happen? I skill swapped. I should have own tempo. Unless one of them has Oblivious, not own tempo. Ah, maybe the Slowbro has Oblivious. That's actually a really cheap move, because you have no way of knowing which Pokemon has which ability. So the advice for this one... Yeah, that's pretty typical. The problem is you actually need to make sure that what you're skill swapping is in fact own tempo, which you have no way of knowing without trial and error. I forgot about that, and that makes me really hate this battle CD. This battle CD might have been annoyingly trial and error based, but it does have a lesson to teach. That the negative side effects of certain moves can be negated by abilities. In this case, the own tempo ability makes you immune to confusion, including the self-inflicted confusion from Thrash. Thrash falls under a category that I like to call Rampage moves, along with Petal Dance and Outrage. Some Pokemon that naturally learn these moves also have the own tempo ability, like, say, Lilligant with Petal Dance. But for Pokemon that don't like Sharpedo, there's always Skill Swap to give them a new ability. What's changed since then? Well, nothing much has changed regarding own tempo and Skill Swap, but Rampage moves certainly have. In Generation 4, Outrage got its power boosted to 120, and Thrash and Petal Dance followed suit in Generation 5. Generation 5 also added a change to how Rampage moves work. If, at any point during the Rampage turns, the move either misses, gets blocked by Protect or any of its variants, or fails due to type immunity, such as Outrage hitting a Fairy type, the Rampage instantly ends. Which means the user is no longer locked into the move. A Rampage being forced to end this way will not induce confusion, unless it's forced to end on the turn it would have ended anyway, in which case you still get confused. Unless you have own tempo, of course. Battle CD 17, another really memorable one, the Rattata that roared. Can a level 5 prevail over a level 100? Yes, they're really going there. Remember that there was only Focus Band in this gen, not Focus Sash, so the Fear strategy, while it was possible, was very unreliable. So, normally, a level 5 would definitely not be able to prevail over a level 100, but it can if the level 100 is a Shuckle. Shuckle, as you know, is a Pokemon that can barely do much damage. Now, something important to note about the stat screen here is that our Rattata has exactly one more speed than the Shuckle. Yeah, 95 level difference and Rattata is still faster. That should tell you how bad Shuckle's speed is. You should also note that it has Bide, and our moves here, Toxic, Substitute, and Super Fang. We also have a 4-turn limit, so we need to make sure to choose our moves carefully. So, let's go! Another David versus Goliath situation. Can we win? In the red corner, we have the level 100 Shuckle. And in the blue corner, the level 5 Rattata. Can she pull off a miracle? Firstly, we want to use Toxic here. Because we only have 4 turns and Toxic's damage increases every turn, you really want to get the most out of Toxic by using it as early as possible. However, Toxic can miss, and if it does miss, you have to restart. The annoying part is Super Fang can also miss. Now, because the Shuckle has no other option, it's going to be going for Bite on its first turn. The thing to remember here is that even though the Super Fang is not really a traditional damaging move, it just cuts the target's HP in half, the damage it does count as attacking damage for the purpose of Bite, so it can get countered back at you. In order to mitigate that risk, we have to use Substitute to put up a wall that will take the Bite once it actually unleashes it. Still storing energy. Now, we go for the Super Fang, now that we're safe behind a Substitute. The problem is, Super Fang can also miss, which is really frustrating. Good, that didn't miss. So it's going to unleash its energy on the Substitute, which will take the hit, and that's good, because otherwise we would have been completely obliterated. We would have taken like 150 damage, which is way more than we have in health. And now, we just need to Super Fang one more time. Doesn't really matter about Bide, because it's not going to be able to get it off before it goes down. Toxic should finish it off this turn. And down goes level 100. We've beaten a level 100 with a level 5 Pokemon. What is it with Rattata and defeating Pokemon much higher level than it? And so for completing that CD, we get an Energy Root, one of the herbal medicines in this game. Normally you can only buy those in Gate and Port, since the Under's closed, the herb shop in there isn't accessible anymore. For the advice, that's pretty self-explanatory, and the way we do that is Substitute. The lesson to be taken from this battle CD is kind of interesting. I wouldn't say this teaches you about how lower level Pokemon can beat level 100s. Because this is really a special case, Shuckle is a very passive defensive wall Pokemon. Regardless of how high its level is and how low its opponent is, it doesn't pose much of a threat with direct damaging moves. The real lesson is that passive defensive walls like Shuckle are extremely vulnerable to toxic and fixed damage moves like Super Fang. Not a lot of Pokemon learn Super Fang, but it is a pretty dangerous move against defensive walls. Another lesson here is that Substitute can be used to block attacks, much like Protect. What Substitute has over Protect is that if you use it on a turn that the opponent doesn't attack, you get to save your shield for a later turn. As for what's changed, I'm pretty much obliged to mention that starting in Generation 4, Rattata became particularly infamous for being able to defeat Pokemon much stronger than itself. Thanks to the Focus Sash item. By using this, any attack from a stronger Pokemon will likely knock a level 1 Rattata down to 1 HP. It can then use Endeavor to bring them down to 1 HP, and then finish them off with Quick Attack. There are many ways this strategy can fail, but it's always hilarious when it works. Bide has also gone through a few changes over the generations. Starting in Generation 4, Bide now has +1 priority for its entire duration, which would include the attack portion. This means that you'd have to make sure to set up your Substitutes before the Shuckle actually attacks with Bide. Because if you tried to use the Substitute on the attack turn, the Shuckle's Bide attack would go first. Also, in Generation 4, Bide always hits regardless of accuracy or evasion modifiers. Also, hilariously, in Generation 4, Bide can hit Ghost types. They changed that back in Gen 5. After completing Battle CDs 9, 13, and 17, 3 more Battle CDs are now available at the shop. These are the last ones that you can purchase from the store though. So this is the last of this complete 3 Battle CDs to unlock 3 more business. So, Battle CD 18, Farfetch'd Substitute. Watch it flail when in trouble. This is another annoying Battle CD that's kind of luck reliant. So we have a level 15 Ninkata versus a level 40 Farfetch'd. And it's still faster than us, so bear that in mind. All it has is Substitute and Flail, and it has a Lychee Berry. So you can tell what strategy that it's going for. We have the following moves. So, let's do this. How will we stop that flailing Farfetch'd from wreaking havoc, I guess? Here's Farfetch'd, what an amazing Pokemon, right? Well, it is if it's facing an unevolved thing. So, Ninkata, we don't want to use Toxic here because we're slower and it will always lead with... hey, we both have the same HP, that's funny. But it will always lead with Substitute, which will block the Toxic entirely. So, we just want to make sure that we take out the Substitutes. Each Substitute will lower 1/4 of Farfetch'd's HP. Its aim is to substitute itself down to 1 HP, activate its Lychee Berry, and then flail. And if that happens, we're pretty much doomed, so we need to prevent that from happening. There is one way to do so, but it's not entirely reliable. Now, the lesson this Battle CD is trying to teach you is a good one, just like the Zangoose vs Credilli Battle CD, but it is a little bit luck reliant. For now, we just have to keep doing this. The real kicker is when Farfetch'd gets low enough that its berry activates. Because it's faster than us, if we let it substitute one more time, it will activate its Lychee Berry and then flail us into oblivion. We actually need Farfetch'd to get KO'd now, and the only way we can do that is to use Fury Swipes. Multi-hit moves will keep hitting even after they break a substitute. This is a great thing to know because it's a commonly used tactic in competitive battles. The problem is Fury Swipes is just not the best move to teach this lesson with. You have to rely on hitting a lot of times with Fury Swipes. If you don't hit enough times, you won't break the substitute and you won't win. So, this is purely based on luck. Fury Swipes itself can also miss entirely. So, it's roulette time. Will I get lucky enough to win? So, Farfetch'd goes down to 3, which should be activating its berry. That's 1 scratch, 2 swipes. That's broken the substitute, and the 3rd should finish Farfetch'd off. There we go. If you only get 2 hits with it, which is actually more common than not, you will lose this, no matter what you do. So, another Battle CD that it is teaching a good lesson about the game mechanics, but it does come down to luck. I kind of wish they'd done with Rock Blast instead. So, for winning that Battle CD, we get a Guard Spec. The advice is a little cryptic, but it sums up what you're supposed to do. The problem is that you need a bit of luck for it to work. If Fury Swipes only hits twice, then you lose, plain and simple. It has to hit at least 3 times. Despite this CD requiring a bit of luck, it does teach a good lesson. Multi-hit attacks are a good anti-substitute measure, as the attack will keep hitting even after the substitute is broken. As you see here, this is particularly useful against Pokemon that use Substitute to lower their HP to either activate a Pinch Berry or use Reversal or Flail. I still wish they'd used a better move than Fury Swipes for this CD though, as it's easily one of the worst of the multi-hit moves. Rock Blast or Icicle Spear are a lot more useful, and you're much more likely to see those in multiplayer battles. A few things have changed to make multi-hit moves even better in later generations. Generation 4 added the Skill Link ability, which causes multi-hit moves to always hit 5 times. This makes Cloyster's Icicle Spear effectively a 125 base power stab move that's almost guaranteed to break substitutes, so that's amazing. Generation 5 made multi-hit moves even better because they not only continue to hit after breaking a substitute, they also continue to hit after breaking a focus sash or the sturdy ability. Sure, Fury Swipes is still terrible, but don't underestimate multi-hit moves like Rock Blast, Icicle Spear, and Boomerang in competitive battles. I should mention, it is technically possible for Focus Band to block the entirety of a multi-hit move, but it has to activate on each individual strike, so the chances of that are incredibly low. Battle CD 19, Volcanic Reaction, a fiery ordeal of invasive flavor. Weird description there. This has always been one of the most memorable battle CDs to me, mostly because that people coming into this game from future generations will probably have a lot of trouble with it. The way to win this relies on exploiting a mechanic of 3rd generation double battles that works differently in every future generation. So, we have a Rhydon, a Golem, a Swellow, and a Flareon. We have to beat these 3 Pokemon in 2 turns. A Muck that doesn't really have much in the way of damaging moves, a Manectric that has even worse in the way of damaging moves, and a level 60 Gengar. Notice how it's level 60 and not 50, so it's a little harder to take down than the rest of the Pokemon here. Now, its moveset is stupid, but the real threat is not knocking it out by the 2nd turn. Here's something to keep in mind. Golem is slightly faster than Rhydon. This is essential. What's also essential is, you need to know the abilities of your Pokemon here. Swellow has Guts, and Flareon, which is the most notable, has Flash Fire. You especially need to know about the Flash Fire. Also note that Golem has Explosion. This is another one of those battles that's more of a puzzle than anything else. If you know the right combination of moves, there's no way you can lose this. But that right combination of moves is kinda tricky to hit on. That 3-star difficulty is definitely indicative here. So, turn 1 of only 2 that were allowed, the opponent is leading with Muck and Manectric. It doesn't really matter what Pokemon they were, because they're both going to go down in the first turn, and they're not really what's important here. Here's how we have to do this. Rhydon has to aim Flamethrower at your own partner slots. This will make sense in a moment. I haven't gone completely insane. Watch this. Golem then explodes. Remember that Golem is faster than Rhydon, so Golem will explode before Rhydon's Flamethrower goes through. Now, what happens if Rhydon is Flamethrowering into an empty slot? You will see. Firstly, these two are just going to be kind of derping around a bit. Now, Muck can use Acid Armor, but even with Acid Armor, Muck does not survive the explosion, because Gen 3 Explosion halves the target's defense when calculating damage, so both of these Pokemon are going to go down. Now, if you crit Rhydon, this can be bad. As you can see, Rhydon just barely survives, and that's a Rhydon. It's not very effective and a Pokemon with massive defense, so Explosion was devastatingly strong in Gen 3. That's probably why they nerfed it. It got used a lot in double battles back then. Gen 3 and 4. So Golem has fainted. Now, we need to send in Flareon. He sends in Gengar, and we send in Flareon. But remember that unlike in later generations, turn 1 is still going. My Flamethrower goes off into the Flareon who just came in and triggers Flash Fire. This is the only way you can take down this Gengar on the 2nd turn. Because now, well, it doesn't actually matter what Rhydon does. I like to go for Flamethrower just to get a bit of extra damage in, but if you do this right, Flareon's Overheat should take out the Gengar. Doesn't really matter what Gengar does. Also, I believe Overheat is not 100% accuracy, so if Overheat misses, you have to restart. But this is only a 2-turn battle. Restarting won't really cost you that much time. Here is the Overheat. With the Flash Fire buff, it's enough to take out the Gengar. You might think that you can do something similar with aiming Toxic at your partner slot and switching in Swellow. I've tried that, it actually doesn't work. Swellow, even with the Guts boost, is not strong enough to take out the Gengar in 1 turn. So you have to do this combination of moves. You have to flamethrower your own golem, you have to send Flareon in its place, and have Flareon activate Flash Fire off of your own move. Anyway, that was a lot to explain, but I find that battle CD really fun. It's one of my favorites overall. And for beating it, we get a... Of course we get a burn heal. You better have burn heal. The advice you get for this one is kind of helpful, because it talks about Flash Fire being useful here. It doesn't explain to you how you're supposed to activate Flash Fire, and I actually really like this hint, because it tells you how to win, but not how to bring that condition about. You have to figure that out yourself. And, I don't know, I really like that. This is one of my favourite battle CDs, personally. While this battle CD is mostly a puzzle with an obscure solution, it does teach us one thing. That in double battles, you can target your own Pokemon to activate helpful abilities. In this case, having a Pokemon with a fire move target its own partner with Flash Fire to boost its partner's fire moves. There are, surprisingly, a lot of things you can do in double battles by targeting your partner. For example, targeting your partner with a substitute up with Swagger. This will sharply raise their attack, but won't confuse them. Moves that hit the entire field are especially useful for this, as not only do you buff your partner, you also get to do some damage to the opponent too. In later generations, Surf for Water Absorb Pokemon and Lava Plume for Flash Fire Pokemon are especially good for this. I guess another lesson to take away is that before Generation 5, Explosion was an absurdly strong move, especially in double battles. It halves the target's defense for the purposes of calculating damage, so its base power is effectively 500. Even with the spread damage reduction in double battles, that's still guaranteed to knock out almost anything. Of all the battle CDs though, this one's solution is definitely a product of its time, as it relies on mechanics of Generation 3 double battles that don't work that way from Gen 4 onwards. Firstly though, I'll just mention that Generation 5 added the Justified ability, which gave rise to another infamous attack your partner strategy, in this case, hitting your partner with Justify with Beat Up. Giving your partner an instant +4 or +6 to their attack stat, depending on how many Pokemon you're allowed to bring to the battle. The real change though is that this battle involves aiming an attack at a partner Pokemon that is going to KO themselves that turn, and having an ally come in to replace them before the attack you aimed at the partner slot goes off. This kind of strategy is only possible in Generation 3, because starting with Generation 4, in double battles, fainted Pokemon are always replaced at the end of the turn, not during. What usually happens if you target an attack at a slot that is empty at the time the attack goes off, is that the attack will automatically redirect into your opponent's other Pokemon. But I'm actually not entirely sure how this works when you're targeting your own Pokemon. So, I'm going to do a little experiment with my 3DS games. So I'm recording a battle against myself here on my Generation 6 games, just because I'm legitimately curious to see how this works in later generations. So, I'm going to have to walk you through exactly what I'm doing here, because the field that's going to be doing a repeat of that battle CD is going to be the opposing field, what you're seeing. So, okay, what you want to do is you want to watch the other side. You want to watch the X-Cloud and the Amoonguss, because what I'm going to do with them is I'm going to have X-Cloud, who is pretty slow. X-Cloud is going to Fire Blast the Amoonguss slot, whereas on my Alpha Sapphire copy, Cheer the Blaziken and Seiryu the Salamence are both going to attack the Amoonguss and hopefully knock it out. This will trigger another Pokemon to switch in, which will be the Rapidash that I have in the back on my other game. And let's just see how this works, whether or not X-Cloud's Fire Blast redirects into the opponent's side of the field, or whether Fire Blast just fails entirely from having no target. Those are the two outcomes I can see here. So, you are going to Flare Blitz that, and you are going to Flamethrower that. And Amoonguss is just going to... Amoonguss is the slowest thing on the field anyway, I don't really care what Amoonguss does. So let's see how this works. Okay, so firstly, you get your flame... Oh, right, you get your stuff. You get your flamethrower in. Okay, you get your flare blitz in. It should knock out the Amoonguss here. So what ends up happening? And yeah, you have recoil damage. And life orb. Okay, it failed. My guess is, yes, that was still aimed at the ally slot. It didn't redirect into the opponent's field. That's all I needed to know. Okay, so that's how this Battle CD solution would have happened if this was 6th gen. So it would have failed entirely. Good to know! Battle CD 20, the last of the 3 CDs you get given for free when you get the CD case. So this is one of them that you will always have access to, regardless of how many CDs that you find throughout the world. Let's slip the Houndoom. Time for a quick change, artist. This is a really strange battle. We have a Salamence, which you normally think is amazing, right? Except the Salamence is useless and can't do anything. We also have a Dusclops. The Dusclops is marginally more useful than the Salamence, but the real Pokemon that we want to bring out here is the Houndoom. Houndoom is the only Pokemon that's really capable of doing decent damage, because we have a Wobbuffet, a Banette, and a Wynaut. If you know how Wobbuffet works, you might understand why this battle is so tricky, at least at first. So, here's the Wobbuffet and its friend Banette. And we have Salamence and Dusclops. Salamance's Intimidator is not going to do anything because Banette only has Knockoff, which is special in Gen 3. So, here's the reason why this is such a problematic situation. Ideally, we want to get this Houndoom in. Houndoom, its dark moves being special, is at no risk of being mirror-coated by the Wobbuffets because it's a dark type and mirror-coat is psychic, so it's immune to it. So we want to send Houndoom in, but we can't do that because Shadow Tag is blocking us from switching. We need to find a more creative method of getting Houndoom in. And that method is something that you would never, ever, ever want to do in a normal situation. Our Salamence is completely useless. I guess the best I can hope for is to Scary Face the Banette, because Wobbuffet's always going last anyway, its speed doesn't really matter. And then what we need to do is... Yeah, I'm actually going to be using this sentence. I'm going to be actually saying these words. Ice Beam our own Salamence. Yeah, that's something that you never, ever want to do in a real battle. But here, it's your only option. Because for some reason, the Salamence they give you is completely useless, so we had to get rid of it. It's the only way that we can switch out for the Houndoom. So, I'm really, really sorry about this, Salamence, but... you're getting team killed. It's for the greater good. And now... Cry Havoc and let's slip the Houndoom. It's time to have some fun. At this point, Houndoom just crunches everything. Because it doesn't need to worry about getting countered by the Wobbuffets. We can also have Dusclops attack, when it wants to. But at this point, we're pretty much done. In fact, this Wynaut's going to be taking a Shadow Punch in the face just as it comes in. Which is actually a pretty good situation to be in, because I have no risk of being countered by this. In fact, I have no risk of being countered by Shadow Punch at all, because it's a fighting move and Dusclops is immune to it. So now that we have a Pokemon with special moves that's immune to Mirror Coat, and a Pokemon with physical moves that's immune to counter, we pretty much got this. So, let's just spam our moves and enjoy ourselves. All because we sacrificed our useless Salamence in the name of victory. Seriously, when do you get to do that in a Pokemon battle? A situation where Ice Beaming your own Salamence is the best tactical play. Pretty amazing. That really didn't matter, but yeah, the battle was going to end that turn anyway. So, we have won! And that clears all 3 of the sample battle CDs that you start with. And yeah, that was a 4-turn limit anyway. So, for clearing that, we get an Awakening. Not that good of a reward for as early as you get that battle CD. Especially not because you have the Call command in this game, so Awakenings are useless. Just like that Salamence. Maybe that was what they were going for. Let's check out this battle's advice. It's kind of less advice and more of just a vague, cryptic hint. Stuff you could probably already figure out, so this one's not really all that helpful. This battle is an awkward one to find a lesson in, as the intended solution is something you will almost never need to do in a real battle. But I guess it does teach us that trapping abilities like Shadow Tag put your opponent in a very bad position, especially in double battles, where they lock down their entire field. This is even more dangerous now that Gothitelle and Mega Gengar are available. Both of them have Shadow Tag, but unlike Wobbuffet, they're actually an active threat rather than just a passive countering one. The other lesson to learn here is that Dark types don't need to worry about Mirror Coat when they're using special moves, because Mirror Coat is a Psychic type move, and so Dark types are immune to its damage. A few things have changed for trapping abilities as the generations went by. Starting in Generation 4, as I explained in one of the earlier Battle CD videos, Pokemon with Shadow Tag cannot trap other Pokemon with Shadow Tag. This was mainly done so that Wobbuffet vs Wobbuffet didn't end in an unwinnable stalemate. But it's also useful to know for Pokemon like Gothitelle. Also, starting in Generation 6, Ghost types are completely immune to trapping abilities and moves, meaning that they can switch out of Shadow Tag or even Arena Trap at any time. Regarding Mirror Coat, Dark types are still immune to it, but that's less useful to Dark types in later generations than it is in Generation 3. In Generation 3, all Dark type moves are special, so not needing to worry about Mirror Coat on your main stab option is a nice thing. From Gen 4 on though, almost every Dark type move became physical, so you wouldn't need to worry about Mirror Coat on those anyway.